Maya Thompson once believed that power and success would shield her from judgment. But that morning at the luxurious private airport, she discovered a harsh truth. Wealth and status meant nothing when faced with prejudice. The door of the sleek black limousine swung open, and Maya stepped out. Her perfectly tailored suit hugged her figure, the morning sun reflecting off her polished heels. Every step she took radiated confidence, until the first gaze landed on her. At the check-in counter, the attendant's eyes scanned her from head to toe, a slight frown creasing their brow. A brief glance, but enough for Maya to recognize it: suspicion. "This area is for premium clients only, ma'am." A simple statement, but the tone was a cold blade. Maya remained calm, presenting her documents confirming her private flight, but the attendant's lips curled in a faint, condescending smile. "Please step aside. We'll need further verification." Behind her, a well-dressed white man in a sharp suit arrived. The attendant's expression transformed instantly into a warm smile. "Welcome, sir. Wishing you a wonderful flight." Maya stood there, feeling the air around her grow heavier. Nearby, two employees whispered to each other, "She can't possibly be a client. Just look at her." "Let security handle it. We don't want any trouble." Minutes later, two security officers arrived. They didn't approach her with the courtesy reserved for valued clients. Instead, they surrounded her, their expressions cold, one's hand resting subtly on the holstered weapon at his waist. "Excuse me, ma'am. Can you explain what you're doing here?" The words weren't a question. They were a verdict. Maya looked around, and the realization hit her like a wave. She wasn't just being questioned. She was being judged. A knot tightened in her chest, but Maya refused to let it show. She knew that her response here would define everything. "I'm a passenger on this private flight, and I want you to remember this face." One of the security guards smirked. "We need further verification. Please wait here." But Maya wasn't one to stand idly by. She pulled out her phone and dialed Rebecca, her trusted assistant. "Rebecca, I need you here immediately. Bring all the documents." But as she spoke, a rough hand seized her phone. "Sorry, ma'am. No phones allowed in this area." Anger surged within her. Maya's gaze turned icy, her voice steady but sharp. "I won't just make a call. I will ensure you remember this day." One of the employees discreetly spoke into his radio. "We have a suspicious situation in the VIP area, requesting immediate support." An alert sounded, and the atmosphere grew tense. Passengers turned to stare, a mix of curiosity and alarm in their eyes. A faint, mocking laugh slipped from the attendant. "No one just walks in here, especially someone like her." Maya locked eyes with them. This was no longer just an inconvenience, it was an insult. In that moment, Maya knew this wasn't just a minor incident. This was a battle, and she had no intention of losing. Maya stood in the heart of the bustling private terminal, but she might as well have been on a stage, surrounded by an audience of silent judges. Security officers loomed around her, their rigid stances a wall of quiet accusation. The air was thick with whispers, some curious, others cruel. But Maya's posture was unyielding, her gaze cold and sharp. Beneath that calm exterior, a storm raged. Memories surfaced. The boardrooms where her ideas were questioned until a man repeated them. The networking events where she was mistaken for an assistant. And now this. A place where her success meant nothing against the weight of prejudice. A female attendant stepped forward, her smile thin and perfunctory. "Ma'am, we have yet to verify your credentials. We ask for your cooperation. Please follow us to a more appropriate area." Appropriate. The word was a slap. Appropriate for whom? For those they deemed worthy? For those who fit their image of success? No. Maya's voice was steady, cutting through the growing murmur. "I will not be moved, and I suggest you contact your superiors immediately, because when this is over, you will remember today." Her words were not a plea, they were a promise. But before the attendant could respond, a voice sliced through the tension like a knife. "She doesn't look like she should be here, does she?" A tall, silver-haired man in a tailored suit stood nearby, a condescending smirk curling at his lips. "Some people just think they belong everywhere," he sneered, his gaze sweeping over Maya with quiet disdain. "But that's the problem these days, isn't it? Security is just trying to keep out the wrong sort." Maya's chest tightened, but her expression remained unchanged. She had faced this before. The quiet whispers, the subtle glances, the masked insults. But not today. Today she wouldn't just endure, she would fight. Security inched closer. One of them, a burly man with a shaved head, spoke in a voice dripping with condescension. "Ma'am, if you continue causing a disturbance, we will be forced to remove you." Maya's eyes burned with a fierce intensity. "Remove me?" she echoed, her voice loud enough to carry. "For what? For standing in a place I paid for? For demanding the respect I deserve?" A hush fell over the terminal. Phones appeared in the hands of bystanders, cameras rolling, eyes wide with a mix of fascination and discomfort. But Maya's voice rose, clear and unflinching. "No one is born deserving less respect. But some people like you. You seem born thinking you deserve more." The silver-haired man's smirk faltered. The burly guard's expression darkened. But Maya's words struck harder than any weapon. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the far end of the terminal. Rebecca. Her sharp, determined stride seemed to cut through the chaos. A sleek leather folder clutched in her hand, her voice rang out like a bell. "Excuse me," she declared, pushing past the crowd. "I am Rebecca Carter, assistant to Ms. Maya Thompson. I have here her flight confirmation, identification, and proof of purchase for this private jet." A murmur rippled through the onlookers. The lead security guard reached for the documents, but Rebecca pulled them back just out of his grasp. "Perhaps you should review them publicly, so everyone here can see just how mistaken you are." A flicker of embarrassment flashed across the guard's face. His hands trembled slightly as he took the papers, scanning them quickly. This appears to be an order." "Appears?" Rebecca's voice was a blade. "It is an order. But what is not in order is the disgraceful way you've treated my employer." The silver-haired man stepped back, trying to merge into the crowd, but Maya's gaze locked onto him. "Leaving already?" she called, her voice carrying a chilling calm. "Not so brave now, are you?" The man's face flushed red, but he said nothing, slipping away into the sea of silent spectators. Rebecca's voice rose again, her tone unyielding. "I want the names of every employee involved in this, every guard who threatened her, every attendant who doubted her, and every witness here who stood by, thinking this was acceptable." Silence, but not the silence of peace, the silence of shame. A young receptionist with kind eyes looked down, her cheeks burning. The janitor by the wall, an old man with tired eyes, paused, his hands trembling on his broom. He did not look away. But it was the security guard, the burly one who had threatened Maya, who finally spoke. His voice, once confident, now shook. "Look, we were just following procedure. It wasn't personal." "Not personal?" Maya's voice was low, but every word struck like a hammer. "You judged me the moment you saw me. You decided I didn't belong. That's not procedure, that's prejudice." Rebecca leaned closer to Maya. "The terminal manager is on his way. I've already notified our legal team." Maya nodded, her gaze never leaving the guards. "I will not just demand an apology," she declared. "I will demand accountability. And you will remember this day. Not because I was humiliated, but because I refused to be." A ripple of something like admiration swept through the crowd. The cameras kept recording. And in that sea of faces, Maya saw something change. A flicker of shame in those who had looked down on her, and a spark of courage in those who had remained silent. But Maya wasn't finished. This wasn't just a moment. This was a movement. Maya stood in the center of the terminal, surrounded by the quiet shame of a silent crowd and the lingering tension of those who had dared to humiliate her. Security officers shifted uncomfortably, their confidence drained. Some looked down, avoiding her gaze. Others simply stared, caught between defiance and guilt. But Maya's focus was unbroken. Her eyes remained sharp, her expression calm but unyielding. This was no longer just about a flight. It was about dignity. And then, heavy footsteps echoed through the marble floors. A man in a sharp navy suit, his tie slightly askew, rushed toward the scene. His face was a mixture of anxiety and forced composure. He was tall, well-groomed, but the thin sheen of sweat on his brow betrayed his discomfort. Henry Collins, the terminal manager, was here. "Miss Thompson," he called out, his voice tinged with forced warmth. "I apologize for this misunderstanding. I assure you, this is not how we conduct ourselves." Maya's gaze settled on him like a weight. "Not how you conduct yourselves. So tell me, Mr. Collins, how do you conduct yourselves? By surrounding your clients with security? By allowing them to be publicly humiliated?" Her voice was calm, measured, but each word struck like a whip. The onlookers remained frozen, their phones still recording. Maya's story was no longer just an incident. It was becoming a statement. Collins adjusted his tie nervously. I understand your frustration, and I assure you the staff involved will be reprimanded. We value all our clients equally. Equally? Maya's voice cut him off, sharp and clear. I wasn't treated equally. I was treated like an intruder. Your staff looked at me, judged me, and decided I didn't belong. And you want me to believe this is just a misunderstanding? The manager's face paled. He turned to the security officers, his voice tense. Return to your posts, now. The guards exchanged nervous glances, then slowly backed away, their presence fading into the background. But Maya didn't let them disappear without a final glance, a silent promise that this wasn't over. Collins stepped closer, lowering his voice as though trying to regain control. Miss Thompson, please, let's discuss this privately. We can resolve this amicably. Privately? Maya's voice rose just enough to ensure the crowd could still hear. You humiliated me in public. You allowed your staff to question my right to be here, in public. And now you want to hide this away? A ripple of whispers swept through the crowd and Collins's jaw tightened. But before he could respond, Rebecca stepped forward, her voice cold and precise. Mr. Collins, this is not just about Miss Thompson's dignity. It is about the culture you've allowed to fester here. A culture where assumptions take precedence over facts, where prejudice is excused as procedure. The manager's face tightened. I assure you, this is not representative of our standards. Those involved will be disciplined. Disciplined? Maya's eyes narrowed. Is that your answer? A few warnings? Perhaps a temporary suspension? No, Mr. Collins, that is not enough. A boldness surged in Maya, fueled by the shame she had endured, by the silent faces around her, some of whom had watched with judgment, others with quiet pity.
Your staff did not just make a mistake. They made a choice. They chose to judge me based on nothing but their own biases. And if this is how they treat one of your highest-paying clients, then I shudder to think how they treat those without a platform. Collins opened his mouth, but Maya's voice pressed on, relentless. I demand a formal apology, not whispered behind closed doors, but here, where this humiliation began. And I want an immediate review of your training practices, your hiring standards, and your disciplinary measures. Silence. The weight of her words settled heavily over the room. Henry Collins's shoulders slumped slightly, his carefully maintained facade cracking. But then, a thought seemed to light behind his eyes. A desperate, foolish thought. Miss Thompson, he began, a thin smile touching his lips. I understand you're upset, but making a scene will not help your reputation. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Maya's expression did not change, but her voice dropped to a low, lethal calm. My reputation, she echoed. Do you think I am here begging for approval? Do you think I fear the opinions of those who watched as I was treated like an intruder? The thin smile on Collins's face wavered. Your reputation, Mr. Collins, is what should concern you. Because right now, you stand exposed. As a leader who excuses prejudice, who defends humiliation as procedure, and who thinks I should be ashamed for refusing to accept it. Collins' face drained of color. Rebecca's voice cut in like a blade. Mr. Collins, I have already contacted our legal team, and unless we see immediate action, a public apology, a full investigation, and accountability, you will be facing more than a damaged reputation. The manager's eyes darted to the phone's recording, the dozens of eyes fixed on him. Panic flickered in his expression. Miss Thompson, I sincerely apologize. On behalf of this terminal, I apologize for the disgraceful behavior you endured. I assure you, those responsible will be held accountable. Maya's silence stretched for a moment, and then she nodded, her voice calm but steely. Words are not enough, Mr. Collins. Change is, and I will ensure this is just the beginning. Collins seemed ready to collapse, his forced smile cracking completely. But Maya turned away, her gaze sweeping the crowd. To those who watched in silence, remember this moment, because silence is complicity. But to those who see this and understand, who have felt the same sting of judgment, know that you are not alone, and that change begins when we refuse to be silent. With that, she walked away, Rebecca by her side. The whispers grew louder, the phones kept recording, but Maya felt the weight in her chest begin to lift. This wasn't just a battle she had won, it was a spark, one she intended to turn into a flame. Maya's heels clicked against the polished marble floor as she and Rebecca strode out of the terminal. The warm sunlight outside felt like a quiet victory, but Maya's mind was far from at ease. The air around her was thick with the echoes of whispered judgment and the sting of quiet complicity. Rebecca's phone vibrated in her hand, a constant stream of notifications lighting up the screen. Videos of the confrontation were already spreading across social media. Dozens of clips, each capturing different angles. Maya surrounded by security, the sneering, silver-haired man, Rebecca's fierce defense, and finally Maya's defiant speech. "I knew it would get attention," Rebecca murmured, scrolling through the comments. "But this is going viral." Maya stopped by the sleek black car waiting for them. As Marcus, her loyal driver, opened the door, she paused, a thought cutting through the chaos. "Rebecca, monitor everything, not just the videos but the comments, the responses. We need to know how this is being framed." Rebecca nodded, already making notes. "On it." Settling into the cool leather seat, Maya leaned back, closing her eyes for a moment. But peace was fleeting. Her phone buzzed incessantly. Messages of shock, support, and questions flooded in. Her executive assistant, media contacts, and even distant acquaintances she hadn't heard from in years were all reaching out. "Miss Thompson," Marcus's deep voice broke the silence, his eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror. "Are you all right?" Maya's eyes opened, her gaze softening at the concern in his voice. "I will be," she said, a small but determined smile forming. "I always am." Rebecca cleared her throat, her voice tense. "Maya, it's not just going viral. News outlets are picking it up. Corporate executive faces racial discrimination at private airport. It's everywhere." Maya's jaw clenched slightly. Her private battle was becoming a public spectacle. But this wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everyone who had ever been judged, dismissed, or belittled because of who they were. "Good," Maya whispered, her resolve hardening. "They wanted a spectacle. Now they'll see a movement." Within hours, the storm reached its peak. Major networks were covering the incident, dissecting every second of the footage. Headlines flashed, "Business leader confronts airport staff over racial profiling. Silence is complicity. Maya Thompson stands sparks debate. Maya Thompson demands accountability, ignites social media movement." Online, the responses were a battlefield of perspectives. Thousands rallied behind Maya, praising her courage, sharing stories of their own encounters with discrimination. The hashtag #StandWithMaya began to trend globally, but there were others. Those who claimed she was overreacting, who dismissed it as a misunderstanding, who defended the staff. Maya read them all. The support gave her strength, but the ignorance, it fueled her fire. Her phone rang. It was Rebecca. "Maya, the terminal management just released a statement. They're calling it a regrettable misunderstanding and promising an internal review." "A review?" Maya's voice was ice. "They think they can make this disappear with vague promises?" "I didn't think you'd be satisfied," Rebecca replied, a smile in her voice. "So I've arranged for an interview. Prime time. Your chance to set the record straight." Maya leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "Perfect. We won't just react. We'll lead." By evening, Maya's name was on every newsfeed. Her face appeared on screens across the country, her calm but fierce words replayed again and again. Celebrities, activists, and even political figures weighed in, turning a single moment of humiliation into a national conversation. But for Maya, this wasn't just about going viral. This was about using that attention to force real change, to make sure her story wasn't just a headline, but a spark that ignited something greater. As the car pulled up to her estate, Maya stepped out, the crisp evening air filling her lungs. She paused at the door, turning to Rebecca. "Schedule the interview and make sure they know. I won't just talk about what happened. I'll talk about why it happens, about the culture that allows it." Rebecca smiled, a glint of pride in her eyes. "They won't know what hit them." Maya nodded, stepping inside. She wasn't just a victim of prejudice. She was a voice, and soon she would be a force. But even as the world buzzed with her name, Maya knew this was only the beginning. Because change was never just a moment, it was a movement. The studio lights were blinding, but Maya's gaze remained steady, her face calm but fierce. The makeup artist had offered to touch up her look, but she had politely refused. She didn't need a polished image, she needed to be real. And when the red live indicator blinked on, she was ready. Welcome to Primetime Tonight. Our guest this evening is Maya Thompson, the successful entrepreneur at the center of a growing national conversation on discrimination. The host's voice was smooth, practiced. Maya, thank you for joining us. Maya nodded, her expression composed. Thank you for having me. The host leaned forward, his tone soft but probing. Maya, the footage of your experience at the private terminal has gone viral, sparking intense debate. Some call you a champion for equality. Others say you overreacted. What do you say to that? Maya's eyes didn't waver. I say the fact that we're even debating whether someone has the right to be treated with dignity is the problem. Silence. The host adjusted slightly, but Maya continued. I didn't overreact. I refused to be dismissed. I refused to be silently humiliated. And what's most telling isn't just how I was treated. It's how many others have experienced the same, but were too afraid, too conditioned to speak out. The host's brow furrowed. But some argue it was simply a misunderstanding, a case of mistaken identity. Do you believe it was about something more? It was never just about identity, Maya replied, her voice steady. It was about assumptions, about a culture that decides who belongs and who doesn't based on nothing but appearance. She leaned forward slightly, her voice gaining a quiet intensity. And for those who say I should have stayed silent, that I should have just accepted it. Silence is complicity. If I had stayed quiet, I would have become part of the problem. The host seemed momentarily stunned, but quickly recovered. Your words have inspired many, but they've also sparked backlash. Some claim you're exploiting this incident for attention, even calling you a professional victim. What do you say to that? A faint smile touched Maya's lips, but it was a smile without warmth. Exploiting? She echoed. I'm exposing. I'm exposing a mindset that has been allowed to thrive in silence. And if my voice is loud, it's because there are so many who were never given a voice at all. The studio remained silent, the cameras capturing every flicker of emotion in her eyes. But Maya, the host pressed, where do we go from here? This story has become a movement, but movements can lose momentum. What's next? Maya's gaze sharpened. We turn words into action. I'm launching an initiative, a platform for individuals to share their stories, for companies to be held accountable, and for training programs that address unconscious bias, not just with checkboxes, but with real understanding. A hushed murmur swept through the studio. Maya's voice did not waver. Change is not an event. It's a process, and it begins when we refuse to accept what we know is wrong. The host leaned back, a rare expression of respect crossing his face. Thank you, Maya. Your courage is undeniable. The show cut to a commercial break, but Maya remained seated, her fingers relaxed on her lap, her breathing steady. Rebecca, watching from the control room, gave her a subtle thumbs up. But as the show's social media feed exploded with reactions, some cheering, others accusing, a familiar unease settled in Maya's chest. For every voice that stood with her, there were those who tried to tear her down. Yet this was a battle she had chosen, because she knew the cost of silence. The red live light flicked off, but for Maya, the fight had only just begun. The sunlight poured through the towering glass windows of Thomson Global's headquarters, but the atmosphere in the boardroom was anything but warm. Maya stood at the head of the polished oak table, her gaze steady, her voice clear. Today, we are not just making a statement, we are setting a standard, she declared. The Equity Initiative will not be a corporate gesture. It will be a commitment. Around the table, her leadership team exchanged uncertain glances. Some nodded with quiet determination, but others fidgeted, their unease barely hidden. Maya's public stand against discrimination had made headlines, transforming her into a symbol of resistance. But not everyone saw that as an advantage. Ms. Thompson, a senior executive, James Carter, leaned forward, his tone measured but tense. We all support the idea of promoting diversity, but launching an initiative this aggressive, with public accountability, could backfire. We're inviting scrutiny. Maya's gaze fixed on him. James, we don't fear scrutiny. We embrace it, because those who have nothing to hide have nothing to fear. James's jaw tightened, but Maya continued. The Equity Initiative will offer more than just statements. We will provide training programs on unconscious bias, mentorship opportunities for underrepresented groups, and a transparent platform for employees to report discrimination without fear of retaliation. Her voice gained a quiet intensity. And we won't just look at our own company. We will partner with other organizations, holding them to the same standards. Real change is not an internal memo. It's a movement. Silence hung in the room, a tension thick enough to touch. But then a familiar voice spoke up. Rebecca, seated beside Maya, leaned forward, her tone unwavering. Maya is right. The world is watching. We can lead this movement or we can hide from it. But make no mistake, hiding will not save us. It will only show that we stand for nothing. A murmur rippled through the room, and Maya felt a quiet surge of gratitude for Rebecca. For so long, Rebecca had been her ally, her voice of reason. But now she was also her voice of strength. But not everyone was convinced. Another executive, Helen Fisher, adjusted her glasses nervously. Maya, we've already received backlash. Some clients are uncomfortable with how political this has become. They fear being associated with controversy. Maya's expression didn't change. Controversy? She echoed. What's controversial about demanding respect? About ensuring that every person is treated with dignity? Helen hesitated. It's not the principle, it's the perception. They fear this will alienate their more traditional clients. Then let them be afraid, Maya's voice sharpened. If they are uncomfortable with a commitment to fairness, then perhaps they are the ones who should be questioning their values. James leaned back, arms crossed, a faint smirk on his lips. Idealism is admirable, Maya, but this is business, and business doesn't survive on idealism. Maya's gaze never wavered. No, James, business survives on trust. And if our clients cannot trust us to stand for what is right, then we have already failed. The room fell silent again, but this time the tension was different. It wasn't fear, it was a quiet reckoning. Even those who doubted could not deny the power in Maya's words. Rebecca spoke again, her voice calm but resolute. I've already reached out to partners. The Equity Initiative will be launched next week, and we've secured interest from several advocacy groups who are eager to support. Maya nodded. And our employees will not just be informed, they will be empowered. We will host town hall meetings, training sessions, and an open forum where their voices will be heard. For a moment, Maya's gaze softened, sweeping over the room. I know some of you are afraid of losing clients, afraid of backlash. But fear has never been an excuse for silence, and I refuse to let it be one now. James's smirk faded, and Helen looked down, her fingers nervously twisting the pen in her hand. But one by one, others in the room straightened, a quiet determination settling in their eyes. As the meeting ended, Maya stepped out into the hallway, the tension of the boardroom lingering in the back of her mind. Rebecca walked beside her, her phone already buzzing with notifications. We're getting messages of support from outside organizations, but, Rebecca hesitated, some of our more conservative partners are reconsidering. Maya smiled faintly. Good. Let them reconsider. I would rather lose clients who fear change than keep those who fear equality. Rebecca's smile mirrored hers, spoken like a leader. But as they walked toward Maya's office, a notification flashed on Rebecca's phone. Her expression darkened. Maya, you need to see this. Rebecca turned the screen toward her. A series of emails leaked to the press, anonymous, but with detailed criticisms of Maya's leadership. Claims that she was using the Equity Initiative for self-promotion, that she was dividing the company, that she was risking their reputation for personal glory. Sabotage, Maya murmured, her jaw tightening. An inside job, Rebecca whispered, her voice tinged with anger. Someone's trying to destroy this from within. But Maya's expression remained calm, a quiet fire in her eyes. Then we don't just fight for change, Rebecca. We fight for the soul of this company. Maya stood by the tall windows of her office, the city skyline stretching out before her like a kingdom, one she had built with vision, resilience, and integrity. But now, that kingdom was under threat from within. Someone in this company is trying to sabotage the equity initiative. Rebecca's voice was sharp, her phone buzzing with the notifications. The leaked emails are gaining traction. They paint you as a manipulator, exploiting discrimination for personal fame. Maya's jaw tightened. We built this company on trust. If they destroy that, they destroy everything. But she wasn't about to let that happen. Rebecca, begin an internal review. Trace the source of those emails, access logs, employee communications, whatever it takes. This is our company. We will defend it. Within hours, the investigation began. IT specialists combed through digital trails, security monitored internal messages, and Rebecca personally interviewed department leads. The atmosphere in Thomson Global turned tense, whispers in the corridors, cautious glances over shoulders. Trust had become a fragile thread, but Maya didn't just wait. She acted. She called an all-hands meeting in the company's grand auditorium. Employees filled the rows, their faces a mix of curiosity, concern, and quiet fear. Maya stood on the stage, the spotlight bright, but her voice steady. Some of you may have seen the rumors circulating, the claims that I am using the equity initiative for self-promotion. Her voice didn't waver. Those are lies. Lies meant to divide us. Lies meant to turn progress into a weapon. The room was silent. Some exchanged uneasy glances, but Maya continued. But this isn't just an attack on me. It's an attack on everything we stand for. On a culture where honesty is valued, where everyone has a voice, where prejudice has no place. Her gaze swept the room, fierce but compassionate. I will not apologize for demanding respect. I will not apologize for fighting for dignity. And I will not apologize for expecting this company to be a place where everyone is valued. A murmur of quiet approval swept through the room, but Maya wasn't finished. And I promise you this, whoever is trying to sabotage our mission will be exposed, because I do not tolerate betrayal, not against this company, not against you. Rebecca, standing at the back, received a message. Her phone vibrated and her eyes widened. She rushed forward, reaching Maya just as the crowd began to stir. Maya, she whispered urgently, we found them. It's James Carter. Maya's gaze didn't falter, her voice rising. Mr. Carter, she called out, her voice cold as steel. Would you care to explain your actions to your colleagues? Or would you prefer I do it for you? A gasp rippled through the crowd as James rose from his seat, his face pale, his lips trembling. Maya's eyes never left him. Because one way or another, the truth always comes out. James Carter stood frozen, his face pale under the harsh auditorium lights. Dozens of eyes locked onto him, some in shock, others in quiet anger. The silence was suffocating. Maya, this is a misunderstanding, James stammered, his voice cracking. I was only trying to protect the company. You were turning this initiative into a spectacle. Maya's gaze remained icy, unwavering. Protect the company? By undermining it? By sowing distrust among our team? James's eyes darted to the exit, but there was no escape. The room was a silent jury. Do you even understand what you have done? Maya's voice rose, not in anger, but in quiet, unyielding disappointment. You didn't just attack me. You attacked the very values we claim to stand for. Honesty, integrity, respect. Rebecca stepped forward, a folder in her hand. We have the logs, James, your emails, your attempts to turn senior staff against the initiative, even your discussions with external partners to discredit Maya. A wave of whispers swept through the room. Maya's voice silenced them. James Carter, you are hereby suspended pending a full investigation. Your access to all company systems is revoked, effective immediately. Security moved toward him. James's defiance collapsed, his shoulders slumping, but his parting words were a quiet, venomous hiss. This isn't over, Maya. People like you think you're changing the world, but you're just making enemies. Maya didn't flinch. Perhaps, but I would rather have enemies than betray my values. As James was escorted out, Maya turned back to the crowd, her voice calm but powerful. To those who doubt, who fear change, I understand. Change is difficult, but letting fear turn into sabotage, that will not be tolerated. Her gaze softened. But for those who believe in this, who believe in a culture of respect, of dignity, stand with me, not just in words, but in actions. A slow ripple of applause began, building into a wave, faces filled with respect, determination, even hope. But as Maya stepped off the stage, Rebecca caught her arm, her expression serious. Maya, the media is already picking this up. Corporate betrayal, Thomson Global faces internal sabotage. This is going to get messy. Maya's eyes met Rebecca's, a quiet fire in them. Let it get messy, because true change is never clean. And I will not turn away now. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one within. Rain lashed against the glass walls of Thomson Global's towering headquarters, each drop a faint echo of the chaos that surrounded Maya's name. But in her office, Maya stood unwavering, her gaze fixed on the city beyond. Rebecca's voice broke the tense silence. Maya, support is coming in. Messages from advocacy groups, civil rights organizations, even some clients who believe in what we're doing. Maya turned, her expression softening slightly. And the others? Rebecca's smile faded. Some clients have officially pulled out. A few partners have distanced themselves, claiming they don't want to be caught in a political firestorm. Maya's jaw tightened. If respect is political, then let them walk. A knock at the door interrupted them. It was Marcus, her trusted driver, but his usually calm face was lined with worry. Miss Thompson, he began, his deep voice almost a whisper. I wanted you to know I've been hearing things. People talking. Some of your own executives are trying to force a leadership vote. They think you've become a liability. Rebecca's eyes widened. A coup? Maya's gaze was calm, her voice steady. Let them try. The truth is a powerful weapon if you have the courage to wield it. But as the night deepened, that truth became a battlefield. Social media was a war zone. Supporters rallied behind Maya, sharing stories of discrimination they had faced, using the hashtag #StandWithMaya. But there were others, critics, trolls, and even a few anonymous accounts claiming to be Thomson Global employees, calling her a tyrant, a hypocrite, a threat to the company's future. Maya's phone buzzed with messages. Rebecca worked tirelessly, fielding calls, issuing statements, but the pressure was relentless. Even those who had once stood with Maya seemed to hesitate, fearful of the backlash. But then, a message flashed on Maya's screen. Don't give in. The world needs leaders like you. Dr. Aisha Patel. Maya's chest tightened. Dr. Patel was a renowned advocate for equality and a fierce critic of corporate hypocrisy. For her to support Maya meant something. Another notification. This time a video. A group of Thomson Global employees standing together in the break room, one by one voicing their support for the Equity Initiative. Maya, we believe in you. We believe in this. A quiet strength returned to Maya's gaze. The battle was fierce. Enemies had revealed themselves. But so had her allies. And Maya was just getting started.